So, as a reminder, the water table is that area between saturated and unsaturated soils. So, we think about the depth of the water table is how far you got to dig down before you get saturated ground. Not standing water, but saturated ground. And it depends on where you are in the state. The major concern, I guess the concerning area right now is kind of western Illinois to southwest Illinois, roughly, Adams Pike County down to the St. Louis Metro East area. Those are areas that have been drier for longer, haven't recovered nearly to the extent of places farther east or north have this winter. And what we've seen is that water table levels remain about 10 to 12 feet deep, if not slightly deeper, which means, again, having to dig down 10 to 12 feet before you get saturated soil. Now, the topsoil moisture in those areas is still okay, top 10 inches or so. Once you get down below that, that's where a lot of the dryness is still, and that's really the legacy of the last couple of years of drought, and that's why those water tables are so far depressed. And so, to give you an idea, at the SIU Research Farm there in Belleville, we typically this time of year have soil or water table depths that are 3 to 4 feet below the ground. Right now, they're about 17 feet below ground. So, this is the time of year we start to see recovery because the plants aren't actively pulling that water out, and we've seen a little bit of that from the wet January, but it's really slowed because of February's been so dry. So, the thing is, this time of the year, when we think about planting, we want the topsoil to be dry and the bottom below it to be pretty wet so that the water is there when we need it, but you're not having to mess with wet soils with planting. And it's sort of the opposite right now. Our topsoils are okay. I wouldn't say they're excessively wet, but they're okay with moisture. Down below that, still deep. So, unfortunately, what that means is that to get those deeper layer soils and those water tables up, we need a pretty wet spring.
I guess farmers could kind of look at the rivers, and the Mississippi has come up,
Yeah.
but is it going to stay up? We don't have a whole lot of water in the upper Mississippi watershed.
Yeah.
And so they could kind of relate to their water table below their cornfield as the Mississippi River would be.
Yeah, especially those, those I would say like streams smaller than the Mississippi, the Kaskaskia and its tributaries, for example, they definitely react to that water table. Those water table levels set the base flow on those streams, meaning that when it's not raining, we're not getting runoff into those streams. What is kind of the base flow that's coming from the ground? And if our water tables are depressed by quite a bit, there's very little base flow helping out those streams, and so that stream flow can be pretty flashy. When you get a rain, some runs off, the stream comes up, but as soon as that runoff stops, the stream starts coming down because it doesn't have that base flow. And so that's what we saw, like I mentioned, the Kaskaskia, the Big Muddy, where we had kind of a big surge in stream flow because of heavy rain and melting snow, and then it came right back down to drought level. Now, the Mississippi reacts a little bit differently because it's so big, but you're right that in the upper Mississippi, we have very little snow. We have depressed water tables really throughout the upper Mississippi. So what that means is that there's not a lot of water feeding the river. So it doesn't take long for, if we do get dry conditions in the Mississippi Basin this year, for that stream flow begin to really deteriorate. And so in some cases, the stream flow is sort of a signal of those water table levels.